So I wanted to focus more on the buildings themselves and what you did on the buildings themselves, because that'll be more of interest to the readers who are all green builders. They're all contractors, home builders. What title do you like? I know that you have I think you're an adjunct professor or now an actual professor. And of course, you're the president of your company.
I usually say building science lecturer. The tagline I normally use is contracting and consulting.
From what I gather from the history of you that I've seen is you have never done anything but high performance construction. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I mean, it's really just sort of fortuitous that the year I started at Habitat for Humanity which was 2001, was the same year that Advanced Energy started their System Vision program based in Raleigh on Centennial campus at NC State. But Advanced Energy is a nonprofit that was started by the North Carolina Utilities Commission to work to help all the utilities in the state be more efficient, so they do work on, residential, commercial, industrial, pretty broad, quite frankly. But I mean, the way I got connected with them was through their System Vision program, which is a partnership with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency.
Okay.
So NCHFA provides a down payment assistance program, for affordable housing providers. And then they partnered with Advanced Energy to create the System Vision program, which is a 2-year comfort and energy use guarantee.
So they have certain energy requirements in order to provide the subsidy, essentially. Why do they call it system?
System Vision, based on the whole systems thinking with construction. So,
So they're not partial to prefabricated stuff or something like that, which is...
No, I would say 99% of the construction in the System Vision program is just stick built, and a lot of it is Habitat for Humanity affiliates in the state. So, they're stick built volunteers, for the most part, but they certainly work with other affordable housing providers as well. They get involved in some LIHTC, low income housing tax credit projects and things like that. But System Vision, if you meet their standards, which are, I would call it Energy Star Plus, if you combine Energy Star and EPA's Indoor Air Plus certifications, then, you're hitting a lot of the same things that System Vision is asking you to do, but is still verified by a HERS rater, just like Energy Star or Indoor Air Plus would be. So, yeah, I mean, we started certifying our homes the same year that I started at Habitat in 2001. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I always joke that I've never built a house to code.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I've always been trying to do it better than that. One of my mentors, actually, who worked for Advanced Energy for most of his career, guy named Arnie Katz, used to say that the building code is the worst home you can build by law. That's kind of the baseline, but that's not the goal. I mean, my goal is to see how good can I build it? I mean, how high performance can I do that and still keep it at a price point that the average person in my area can afford to buy it.
Now, your Duke Street Cottages, what are the price range? You have 2-bedroom and 3 bedrooms. Understand?
Right.
What are the prices for those?
Yeah, the 2-bedroom starts at $200,000 and the 3-bedroom is $300,000. I only did 2 of the 3 bedrooms. I actually kept 1 for myself. That's where I am right now.
Yeah, so you're brave to live in your own neighborhood. All the warranty calls, just walk over and knock on the door, right?
Brave or stupid. Yeah, I'm not sure which, but I'm a sucker. Yeah. So the other 2-story, I actually started as a spec, and it was on the market for quite a while, before I sold it. So what I decided I would do is, it's an 11 unit, infill pocket neighborhood is what I call it. But I started the first 5 as phase 1, and then now I'm building out the rest. But out of those first 5, 2 were 2 stories and the other 3 were the 2-bedroom cottage. After I had trouble selling that other 2-story, I decided, maybe I should let the market dictate what I build instead of, me trying to figure out, what people want. So essentially, we just said the rest of the lots in Duke Street Cottages, it's as soon as we get somebody who wants to buy a lot and build a house, you get to pick, which plan you want to build it. Yeah, everybody seems to want the smaller 2-bedroom. It's 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and it's just over 800 square feet.
I'm amazed. So that the 2-bedroom, 1 bath is more successful because of the price point than the 3-bedroom, which is obviously a nicer house.
Yeah, but I think the other issue with the 3-bedroom is it's a 2-story, so you're dealing with stairs. Okay, and a lot of people just don't want to deal with stairs.
Mm-hmm. Are you getting mostly older people? Is that why?
Well, it's really both ends of the spectrum. So I'm getting, it's mostly 1 and 2 person households,
right?
And they're either first time home buyers, one end of the spectrum, or retirees or soon to be retired on the other end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got some, 20s and 30s on one end, and then we've got 50s, 60s, 70s on the other end.
Interesting, isn't it? You'd think just the opposite, wouldn't you? But I guess there's now a big population of small households, and a big population that for whom 200,000 is a stretch, let alone.
Exactly.
Now, I had seen some other prices on the houses somewhere, and I thought, well, these aren't all that affordable. But they actually are. 200,000 is nowadays a pretty affordable price point. In fact, it's a rare price point. Did you get the land for free or a high discount? Did you have a special deal on the land, or did you have to buy it?
Yeah, I bought it from a private individual.
Okay, so no land subsidy involved in that. No. What I know that there's a big emphasis on the echo panels. And I do intend, and I'm going to ask you, in fact, who should I talk to at Echo Panels? Would you have a name or a contact for me? Because I think they're unique, the panels, the way they're made and all. It's not your standard SIP panel. So I would like to include them in it. But most of the stuff I read emphasizes the eco panels, maybe because their marketing department promotes the articles. But I wanted to hear all the different elements that you use to make the houses more affordable. All about the things that make it super performance. But I'd like to hear about what did you do consciously to make it more affordable?
The affordability piece, it starts with the size, Okay. So, in other words, so much of our decision making in the construction industry is based on a cost per square foot.
Right.
For better, for worse, and personally, I think it's for worse, but we're so stuck on that metric. You have to be prepared to answer those questions. If you're building the average size home in the US, somewhere in the 22 to 2,400 square foot range, and the cost per square foot of building in our country continues to go up, then the cost of housing continues to go up. So, which of those things can I impact? I can only control so many things as it relates to the cost of construction. Obviously, I have a lot of choices to make as the general contractor on these homes that will ultimately impact the total construction cost, but I can absolutely decide how large these homes are going to be. I really wanted to test the market with smaller houses. I call these cottage homes as opposed to tiny homes, which the building code now defines, a tiny home as less than 400 square feet.
Right.
So, I'm trying to be in that 800 to 1,000 is really where I would like to focus. But I definitely think there's a market for that. Let's call it 1,200 to 1,600 square foot range, but now you're probably looking at 3 bedrooms because 1 and 2 person households are the fastest growing in our country. Do they need 3 bedrooms? Often the answer is no. So yeah, I think I've not had any issues, no complaints, from potential buyers about it only having 2 bedrooms. Mm-hmm. I think if it only had 1, that might be a different scenario. And I'm certainly interested in testing it. But so far, the only real negative criticism I've had from potential buyers is that it only has 1 bathroom. They would really like to see a second full bath, like a true master bath.
Well, there's a lot of comfort in not having to wait for the toilet.
Even if it was a half bath, that might make a difference. Yeah. But I think the mindset is if we have guests in the second bedroom, then we'd like them to have their own bathroom and, we have our bathroom. As you say, even if it's just a couple, sometimes it's nice to have, that second toilet or another place to get ready, while somebody else is taking a shower, especially when it's a small bath. So as I move on to future projects, I think having the second full bath is definitely something I've taken away from this experience, that I plan to stretch it a little bit enough to get that second full bath. So if it goes from 800 square feet to 900 square feet, I don't think that's a huge deal. I think I've got some room if I need to increase the prices slightly and still be in the ballpark with what people can afford.
Well, usually under 250 is now that range that people, it's not that they're looking for it, they're looking for a $50,000 house, but they don't find it. And under 250 is hard to find. So
yeah, exactly. No, I think you're onto it. And for our area, if I can keep it under 250, there's also just very little competition. There's really almost no new construction in that price point. Even existing housing stock, there's just very limited options for anything decent at that price point.
Did you do anything else? The size I understand perfectly. And then everything else I've read about your construction would increase the cost. Hyper efficient mechanical systems. I don't know what you did with the plumbing, anything special, the eco panels, solar ready, etc. Tell me about some of the things that you like limited. Maybe like you chose cheap light fixtures. I don't know, anything that you limited.
Well, what I limited is choice.
Okay.
I'm streamlining my purchasing process. I'm only building 11 houses here, and I'm not even doing it all in one shot. I really did this in 2 phases. So it's not like I'm D.R. Horton, with some crazy purchasing power. I'm not suggesting that. If you're doing more than one, if you're doing multiples, you've got a little bit of negotiating power, So if I can order, let's take flooring as an example. If I can order flooring by the pallet quantity, as opposed to a house at a time, there's some ability to negotiate pricing on that level, but it also just simplifies my entire process. I give them 2 flooring options. You can have the light color or you can have the darker color. A lot of like if you went in a model home, for a small regional, developer, you might have 6 to 8 choices of flooring, and you might be able to have carpet in the bedrooms, whereas you have hard surface in the living area. I don't offer carpet, not just because I want to simplify things, but because it's not good for indoor air quality. If you want to put area rugs in your house, go for it, but you're going to do that after closing. I'm not providing that stuff. So I use the same interior paint color on every house.
You've got the Henry Ford approach to choice.
In a way. Yeah, that's right.
Any color, so long as it's black.
It's black. That's right. Yeah. So, mine is Sherwin-Williams Popular Gray.
Popular Gray. That's your interior color?
Yep. They call it like a grayish, it's somewhere between gray and beige. But I mean, maybe you don't love it, but you don't hate it. As long as you don't hate it. And I always tell people, you can paint it whatever color you want after closing, but me and my painter have agreed that we're using one color throughout, and it just simplifies everything, and it keeps the cost down. So that's what I try to communicate to potential buyers is, look, it's not that I don't want you to be able to customize your house and make it your own, but the way I'm able to keep the cost reasonable, I'm not suggesting these are inexpensive. Of course it's an expensive purchase, but I mean, I'm able to control it by keeping things simplified, streamlining the whole process for me as the builder, but maybe more importantly for my subcontractors, my trade partners, making their lives simpler.
Yeah, a lot of times builders don't realize that simplifying things for the sub is what makes them able to give you a tighter bid, especially if they can repeat the same thing and get practice at it.
There you go.
Good at doing it. Now, what about the exteriors, though? Do you limit the exteriors too, or do you use variety and such there on account of the street facade?
You mean in like siding or color or both?
Yeah, siding, colors, things like that.
So phase 1, I was using the James Hardy Color Plus pre-finished siding. I met the local James Hardy rep. I was planning to use LP Smart Side, which is what I'd always use when I was at Habitat. Met the local James Hardy rep. And essentially, he was able to get me a builder rebate, which helped buy down the cost of the Color Plus siding to get it. Basically, it was the same cost as what the LP would have been as a primed product. So I would have still had to paint it. I like the product. It looks great, but we had some issues with breakage. So we had a lot more waste than I hate waste. It drives me absolutely insane. So, I mean, when you see a 4x8, I'm doing board and batten, but when you see a 4x8 board cracked right in half because somebody's, trying to pick it up by themselves and it's cold outside, I can't have that. So we actually did end up switching back to, I guess the other aspect of using a pre-finished siding is if you order too much of the red siding and you're only doing one red house, what am I doing with the overage? They won't take it back.
Right.
It's a special order.
Right.
So now I'm stuck with it. Well, the opposite is also true. What if I under order and it's a special order product that has a couple of week lead time? Now it's slowing down my build process. So I just made the decision. I'm going back to Smart Side prime product and we're just going to paint it. I did end up sticking with the Color Plus palette because I love it so much.
Because the red house looks fabulous. I've seen pictures.
Well, their whole palette, I love those colors. So basically I said to the eventual buyers, look, you get to pick your color from this. I think there's like 16 colors, in the palette. We're only going to do one, per one house, that color, in the development. So it's your color. But, the sooner you get in, the sooner you get to pick your color.
So you have 16 colors. And then as soon as someone chooses a color, you cross that one off.
You got it. Yeah.
Okay, good.
If I over order, on siding. Now I can just move it to the next job.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anything special on the roofing materials you used?
No, it's about as not special as you can get. I mean, I'm
Like
just using
3-tab shingle.
Well, it's an architectural, I think there's CertainTeed landmark 30-year architectural, but they're just black. We just use the same shingle on every house. I'm not varying that at all. And then we actually used a black metal roofing just on the porch roof.
Okay.
Just as an accent. But again, it's all the same.
Standing seam or corrugated?
Yeah, just the less expensive exposed fastener metal. It's just on the porch. It's not over conditioned space.
Good. Do you have garages in the house? I don't remember. You don't have garages, no?
No, which, that's been the other big, I guess, complaint for potential buyers is, and even some of the homeowners who live here, including myself, it's not so much that I want to be able to park my car in a garage. It's where do you put your toys, your bikes, your boats, kayaks, paddle boards, those things don't fit in a small house. We do have these nice attic storage spaces. In phase one, we use attic storage truss and we floored that whole center section of the attic, for storage and use a really robust set of pull down stairs for access. And I mean, you've probably got 300 to 400 square feet of floor storage in that attic, but you're not putting a bike.
You take your bike up there. Yeah. No, you have a storage place though for them, right? You have like a storage warehouse or something.
Well, as far as attached to the house, no. I mean, there's a small mechanical closet on the back of the house, but that's for the heat pump water heater, the electric panel. There's really no space for bikes. But what we are talking about as a community, we've got this corner of the property where on the site plan, it shows it as a pavilion, like a picnic shelter. We have a property owners association. We have monthly meetings, where they get to complain about the construction not being done yet. We've also just sort of surveyed the group to say, what do we need? What would we really like to see on that corner lot? And the thing that keeps coming up is storage. So now we're actually thinking about building a detached garage there with individual bays that would almost serve like, self-storage units.
I saw that or read that or something somewhere, and that made a lot of sense. Yes, storage is always a big issue, especially in very small homes. You have all this stuff. We're Americans, after all, right? We buy stuff. That's our whole life.
Well, and a lot of apartment complexes or townhomes even, don't have attached garages, but they might have detached garages somewhere on the property that, you can buy or lease, on a monthly basis, whatever.
I'd like to see the fixtures and all that, because I assume you streamlined on that. I assume you used the same fixtures. You didn't use like the top of the line on everything, at least in terms of, the aesthetic aspects, because you can get very good fixtures that are just fairly simple.
Well, and absolutely. So we're using the exact same light fixtures, ceiling fans, plumbing fixtures, door hardware. It's all exactly the same on every house. And they're cottage homes, but the insides have a little bit more of just a clean, modern feel.
Right.
I don't have any heavy wood trim anywhere.
Good.
I'm doing drywall returns around the windows, but because the walls are thicker, looks like you have this nice ledge there and sort of inset around the windows, but it's meant to be really clean, simple lines, throughout the home. All the light fixtures are sort of a black. The windows, I guess that's the other thing we didn't really talk about in terms of upgrades. I mean, these are obviously, they're double pane. They're not triple pane, but they're Marvin Essential casement and awning windows. I mean, they're not inexpensive, but I don't have many windows to begin with. There's 9 windows in one of these 2-bedroom houses. So I feel like I can not splurge, but I can spend a little bit more on those because there's so few of them. And I love these windows. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about the houses, and the black windows just really it pops with the white trim around it.
What about your window sills? Are they also drywall?
Yep. Drywall returns.
What about things like closets and such? Did you use drywall returns on closet doors or?
No, I mean, so I just use 1x4 casing, flat 1x4 around all the interior doors, and then 1x6 baseboard, and I install all that myself. I'm not paying a carpenter, to come in and do my trim. I've actually got a couple of students from App State that work for me part-time during the semester, and then some will actually work full-time in the summer. But the way I look at it is, especially with my Habitat for Humanity background, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do yourself. With less skilled labor, if you just take your time and try to do a good job.
And what about cabinets and counters and backsplashes?
Yeah. So in terms of cost control, I'm always shopping for a better deal on cabinets. And I started out just buying them through Lowe's and, doing the installs myself. But I found a company in Charlotte, North Carolina that they either offer flat pack and you assemble them on site, or they will pre-assemble and deliver them, kind of like Lowe's does. So I'm paying them to pre-assemble them and deliver them, and then I put them in. But just ballpark numbers here. On the Lowe's cabinets, I was probably spending around $7,000. On these that I'm getting out of Charlotte, they're closer to $4,000.
Big difference.
These are small kitchens, so they, I don't want them to be, if I was doing a custom kitchen, I could spend 15 to 20 grand on this small kitchen, no problem. But that's one of the areas where I'm really trying to keep my costs down. But from an indoor air quality perspective, I also have to make sure that these things aren't chock full of urea formaldehyde,
Right.
So, I mean, they have to meet all the EPA Indoor Air Plus standards for engineered lumber, but these are plywood boxes. They're standard sizes. You can only order these size cabinets, and they're all white shaker. I don't offer stain cabinets. Everybody gets the same thing.
And countertops?
When I first started, I was working with I still am. I'm working with a local countertop business here in town. Essentially what I was saying to the buyers is level 1 granite is included in the cost of your home. You go over here to Granite Counter Connection, you pick out level 1 granite, that's included. If you want to upgrade to something like quartz, then you just pay the difference over there, and just let them kind of deal with that. Everybody wanted quartz. So for phase 2, I just said, all right, I went and found actually there's like 2 or 3 choices at the Granite Counter Connection that are quartz. They're a little bit more expensive than the level 1 granite, but not too much more. And again, with such a small kitchen, you're talking a couple $100 extra for that.
Yeah.
So I just said, I'm going to go ahead and include that in the cost of the homes.
Now, how did the Echo panels work out? I was looking at their system. I like their cams, where it hooks in and stuff to tighten the joints and all. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah. So as you pointed out earlier, Eco panels, and quite frankly, Charles Leahy, the owner, does not like you to call them SIPs.
Right.
They're Eco panels. But I mean, obviously it's a similar product in that it's 2 skins of OSB with foam insulation in the middle, but it's not EPS foam like most SIPs. It's closed cell spray foam. And they've got a small factory in Mocksville, North Carolina, where they have these huge presses and they place the 2 skins of OSB. And then obviously they're injecting 2-pound closed cell spray foam in that panel. And then once it sets up, then they take it out of the press. Once that thing is set up, I mean, it is a extremely rigid, durable panel. And then they offer Huber zip system sheathing as an upgrade on the exterior skin. So the thing I really like about that is once I set the panels with the Huber zip sheathing on the exterior, all I have to do is tape the seams and boom, I've got my building envelope, my air control layer, my water control layer, my thermal control is obviously built into the panels. So, I mean, I can have one of these things in the dry, fully taped in about 3 days. And that includes the interior framing that's necessary to support the roof panels.
Do you use prefabricated wall panels on the interior or stick frame the interior?
Yeah, we're stick framing them. I mean, I have so few interior walls.
Are you using 16 or 24 inch on center?
Typically 16 on the interior walls. It might be a little bit of overkill, but the middle wall, the demising wall right down the middle of the house supports a ridge beam that carries the roof panels. So they can free span 16 feet with their 8.25 inch roof panels. And it's like just over 15 feet for our roof panels. So that works out really well. And it gives me this nice vaulted ceiling over the great room area. And then over the bedrooms and bathroom side, we're framing a floor, decking it, obviously. And then we're giving the buyer the option of either closing that off and making it attic storage or leaving it open as a loft space. And I've only had one buyer say they wanted to close it off as an attic. Everybody else has left it open as a loft. And it just makes that small house feel that much larger. But you also have a ducted mini split somewhere in there. Isn't that in the attic? That's in the 2-story house, like the one that I kept for myself. So I've got a ducted mini split in my attic and then a ductless mini split on the first floor. And all the houses have ductless mini splits, I guess, on the first floor. Just one or how many? In the 2-bedroom house, we started out with one in the living area that was sized for the whole house. And then we were utilizing the ventilation system to try to help distribute the air. Let's just say We had some comfort complaints, mostly in the master bedroom, especially the houses where the master faces south. They were just overheating in the summertime. So basically my HVAC contractor said, we're not doing this anymore. We're now using a 3-head system with a smaller head in the great room area and 2 small heads, 1 in each bedroom.
Okay. Yeah, that will make sense. I saw the picture too, or it was in the video. It was not obtrusive. It was fairly discreet.
We've not had any buyers really complain about the aesthetic of the ductless mini splits. I mean, ultimately, people just want to be comfortable in their homes, whatever it takes. If they had their choice, would they rather not see it? Probably.
Sure. Well, they want to be comfortable physically and financially. So you have quite a system. You have that whole Mitsubishi system where you have air quality control element too. How much did that increase your price to add all that air quality stuff?
Just in terms of the Mitsubishi system, I used to work for Mitsubishi. So, but we always used to say the expensive part is the equipment, but you should be spending less on labor. So it's really about a wash on just the heating and cooling side of it. But I'm partnering with Broan on the ventilation strategy for the house. And so these all have their smallest ERV, which is around $1,000 just for the ERV itself. And then of course you have to pay the contractor to install it and duct it. So that's an expense, but obviously our homes are so tight that there's no way I would not do that.
You also have an air purifier, don't you? An air cleaner of some kind?
In phase 1, where we were only using 1 head, we had a whole house filtration system, which was part of the air distribution.
Right.
But in essence, the ERV is really my primary air quality strategy. And then of course,
so moving forward, you eliminated that whole house air filtration system because it really was about moving the air more than about filtering it.
Exactly.
Right. Pretty clean already. Anything else? Did you use a recirculating water heater? Oh no, you used a heat pump water heater on all of them.
Yeah, I'm definitely a heat pump technology geek. I mean, but not just for space conditioning. I mean, yeah, we used Rheem heat pump water heaters in phase 1. I just switched to the LG heat pump water heater in phase 2. Not only do they look really cool, because they're stainless steel, but I mean, it's an inverter compressor, so they're much quieter. And yeah, so far we're very pleased with the performance on those.
Now you have another project coming up, which is the Hickory Grove. Are you in planning phase for that, or what phase are you in that for Hickory Grove?
Yeah, we're in design. So my civil engineer is working on the site plan. We're trying to get that finalized to submit to the city for approval. Hopefully we get that plat recorded and, we're ready to start pulling permits by the end of the year on that project is the goal.
And you're going to do some townhouses or apartment units, or you're changing a little bit?
Yeah, the plan is to do duplex townhomes.
Okay.
And it's just under an acre of land, but it's zoned high density residential. So you can do 20 units an acre there by right. So on paper, I can do 17 units, but I think we're going to do 16, so 8 duplexes.
What will you change in terms of what you've learned with Duke Street on this next project?
It will still be a pocket neighborhood. It's an infill project. So, I mean, the layout will be similar, but whereas Duke Street has a center courtyard, green space, grass, Hickory Grove, the reason we called it that is there are 2 large pecan trees right in the center of the property. So we're actually going to try to keep those and make it a natural area. So the townhomes will surround a shared natural area in the center versus, grass. There is a little bit of green space between those trees and the street. So we'll keep that open as, we're thinking about maybe doing like a community garden and a dog park in that area since it's grass already. And then again, the townhomes kind of circle that space, and the parking and access, the drive or alley is what I'm shooting for, will be on the perimeter, on the outside.
Will each house then have its own individual parking space, or will there be a parking lot?
I really don't like parking lots. So what we're pitching to the city is that we're going to raise them up 1 level and be able to park 1 car underneath.
Okay.
And then have what we're hoping is enough space for 2 cars between the duplexes.
Okay.
So in other words, each duplex would have 1 covered space underneath and then 1 right next to the unit.
Is the covered space a garage or just a carport style covered space?
Still trying to decide on that. I mean, I guess I'm probably leaning toward garages. Just again, so even if you don't want to park a car in there, you've got the ability to store your bikes, boats, that kind of stuff in there and, have that secure.
Andres Duani says of the garages that they are really workshops or flex spaces that for the time being are large enough to store a car.
There you go.
Because he says in time, we're not going to need parking spaces at all. because because of the direction we're going with the self-driving cars and the idea that you just, like Uber style, call a car to take you wherever you want to go. And so
one of the things we've discussed at Duke Street Cottages, just as a concept, I'm not saying we're moving in that direction yet, is with this detached garage idea, having a shared electric vehicle that basically is parked at that garage and, essentially just keep it plugged in so it's always charged up, and then making that a shared vehicle for the neighborhood.
Interesting.
So let's say right now, if you've got two people living in the house and you've got two cars, maybe you could get down to one car that you own. And that if you had access to a shared vehicle that you could reserve, to go to the doctor or run to the grocery store or, the hardware or whatever. We haven't done it yet, but it's certainly a concept I'm interested in testing. And, maybe it doesn't happen at Duke Street, but maybe we do implement that at Hickory Grove.
Yeah. Well, you may need more than one to do that effectively, but it's an interesting concept. Now, my wife and I, we have one car. We have a Subaru. And I used to know a couple that had one car, and I thought it was nuts. How do you get along being two people with one car? I had a truck, an F-150, a big old truck I was building in Nebraska, and that truck stayed there. We went moving to Texas, and we had the one car, and somehow life went on just fine. And we one car. Very occasionally we have something where we need to be in different places, and I'll take an Uber, but that's very occasional. I mean, we get along just fine with one car. I realize you can live with one car and two people, no problem. The other is just, it's hard to mentalize because all your life you have a car per person in the family. So I think your idea is really, really, really good.
What if the municipality was willing to trade off a parking requirement if you had a couple of shared vehicles, and could essentially guarantee that we're only going to have one car per unit parked at the unit? It's an interesting concept to try to test at some point.
Now, your homes are net zero ready because they're designed to have solar panels. Are you putting solar panels on your house, or have you?
Not yet. I've got a friend who teaches with me at App State who owns his own solar company. So he has given me a proposal to put solar and battery storage on my house. Unfortunately, it's more than I can afford to spend right now. But as you know, the house is already, sort of roughed in for that future install. So that is my intention, is, to take my house to net zero at some point. But with Hickory Grove, we're actually trying to make the numbers work to include solar and battery storage on every house. I'm also talking to Green Builder Media about doing a vision house at Hickory Grove. They've had this vision house concept for quite some time. I'm going to say over 10 years, but they've probably got at least a dozen or more vision house projects scattered about the country. They're currently building one with one of the national builders in the Southwest, and maybe Beazer. I think Beazer Homes is currently doing one with them, but most of them are more custom.
Are these the awards? Is that an award or just a type of?
No, it's really more a way for Green Builder Media to demonstrate the latest construction technology to try to make homes more sustainable. Mm-hmm. In this case, they also want to showcase workforce or attainable housing. Okay. So, that was the reason for them approaching me, but it looks like we are going to do a demonstration home at Hickory Grove and try to make it net zero energy and net zero carbon.
Now, is this then the way you'll build all of the houses or just the one demonstration house?
The way the Vision House thing works is, they have manufacturer partners that agree to either donate or discount product for the Vision House. And then the expectation being that you're going to use those same products on the rest of the houses in the project. So the goal would be for them all to be that end up being net zero energy, net zero carbon.
You're nicer than I, because I would do demonstration houses, but it would be the one house and it would give the rest of the neighborhood the gloss.
Right.
But the rest of the neighborhood would be very conventional. You're a better man.
It's a concept right now. So, the numbers obviously have to work.
Yeah. That's always the problem, isn't it? Have you worked with Ross Chapin on any of these?
I mean, not directly, but, Ross Chapin obviously inspired Duke Street Cottages directly. I mean, I met him at an innovative housing summit in Atlanta back in 2018. He was the keynote speaker, was certainly inspired by him and his book. The Microlife Institute in Atlanta was the one who they host that innovative housing summit every year, but they also host pocket neighborhood workshops for developers. Mm-hmm. So I attended one of those workshops as a follow-up to that summit. And it's all based on, the principles that Chapin, writes about in his book. So yeah, I don't know that we have ever really communicated directly, but I feel like he helped design Duke Street Cottages, whether he knows it or not.
Okay, so I'm sure he's done many, many throughout the nation that he doesn't know about. Right. But I worked on the promotion of his book when it came out. The same people that promoted my book, promoted his, and I ended up doing work for them, helping promote other books. This was one of them. So actually, I'm very proud owner of a galley of this book, the original, one of the original copies. Not
awesome.
Published copies, but the pre-publication copies, the ones you used to redline. So
right.
it was nice. I like him a lot. I like his concept, and he turned it into a meme, didn't he? For real. His pocket hero. It's now a standard real estate term, so everybody knows what you're talking about as soon as you mention it. Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate you allowing me to kind of speak at length too. Thank you so much, man. It's been
yes, sir. Thank you.
Pleasure, Robert. Okay,
enjoy.
Bye.
Bye.